Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. After years of adventuring and even visiting multiple other planets, there's still a hell of a lot that we don't know about Azeroth and quite a few places that we have not visited yet. Today we're going to be going through the unexplored parts of the planet, covering their lore, and trying to figure out how they might slot into the game. Kulturas is an entire human nation that we've never really seen in-game before, which is kind of insane. It's pretty much just been sitting there, not taking a part in anything since Warcraft 3. So Kulturas itself is an island located just west of the Central Eastern Kingdoms. It has been part of the game's lore since Warcraft 2, but it's also been really absent from World of Warcraft. You might think that it's therefore just something Blizzard have wrote out of the story or forgotten about. Not true. In Legion, Kulturas Marines are amongst the captives of the sea giants in Oceanus Cove, so they're definitely very much still in existence. Now, people thought that Cataclysm would add Kulturas to the game, but the closest that we got was, of course, Tol Barad, which is close to Kulturas and is an island that used to be under their control. Now, numerous developer interviews in and around that era mention them wanting to bring Kulturas into the game for a patch, but of course we know that did not happen. Kulturas itself appears to be an independent city-state that's located in the sea between the kingdoms of Lordaeron, well, now the Forsaken, and Stormwind. They seem to have been your sort of standard, maritime merchant state, perhaps similar maybe to something, I don't know, like Venice. They joined up with the original alliance in the Second War when Lothar asked their leader, Dalen Proudmoore, for aid. So Kulturas then helped them out, but eventually pulled out of the alliance after Lothar's death and the end of the Second War. But they were quickly pulled back into action when the Orcs renewed their offensive. But later on in Warcraft 3, a Kulturas base on the Darkspear Islands would be destroyed by Thrall's horde. Shortly after that, Medivh then convinced Jaina to lead her expedition across the sea to Kalimdor. In doing that, she pretty much took a very big proportion of the Kulturas fleet. This, of course, led to the alliance between the humans, the Night Elves, and the Orcs, and a few others that eventually ended up killing Archimonde in Warcraft 3. So, Kulturas then re-enters the story shortly after that during the Founding of Durotar campaign in Warcraft 3. Basically, Dalen came looking for his daughter with a fleet that was large enough to really involve quite a lot of the nation's strength. They began to attack the Orcs in Durotar, much to the confusion of the Orcs given their alliance with Jaina, but after a few twists and turns, Dalen took over Theramore and prepared for a massive assault on the newly constructed Orgrimmar. Jaina, of course, then turned on her father and convinced Thrall to hire mercenary goblin ships to blockade Theramore itself. Then, of course, Thrall attacked the city, which led to Dalen's death. Bar a few mentions, though, they have not been really seen in the game since. Jaina is presumably their leader, and given the lack of a story for her recently and her apparent rage quit at the start of Legion, it seems perhaps likely that she could narratively be used to bring Kulturas back into the game. Why would this be done? Well, there is still one potential oceanic expansion left, as far as we know. N'Zoth lives deep under the sea, and we of course have all of the Naga, so it would make quite a lot of sense for Kulturas to play a heavy role in that expansion as the Alliance entry point. You know, it really has been a long time since we've got a troll raid. Well, Zalandar is the home of the largest troll empire, the Zalandari. Led by Rastakhan, they've been a thorn in our side for years. The state of their empire, and indeed the island itself, really is in a lot of peril. Like much of Azeroth, it used to be a part of the supercontinent of Kalimdor before the Sundering happened. During this time, the trolls were one of the oldest and most powerful forces on the land. When the Sundering was over, the Zandalari trolls then found that, well, they were now living on an island. Going through their history would really take a very, very long time indeed, but basically the trolls are in many different tribes. The Zandalari are the largest of the tribes, and they often find themselves in a leadership position amongst just the troll species in general, bar of course the likes of the Darkspear, who are allied with the Horde. Now, the Cataclysm hit the Zalandari pretty hard, and hit the Zalandar island itself very hard indeed, inflicting massive damage to the trolls living on the island, but also to the island itself, which began to sunk into the sea. Shortly after the Cataclysm, the trolls of all empires met to discuss their plans. They would normally do this every 6 years anyway, but after the Cataclysm, as well as the events of Zalaman, Zul'Gurub, and Zul'Farrak, and all the interference from the Alliance and the Horde, it wasn't going well for the trolls in general. This led to their renewed offensive in 5-4, 5-1 even, and while we defeated them handily, it definitely wasn't the last we would see of the trolls. In Mists of Pandaria, they attempted to ally themselves with the Mogu Empire again, in the hopes of shifting the balance of power on the planet a little bit more into their favour. After setbacks in Kunlai and Mogushan Vaults, they successfully did bring back Lei Shen, but they were ultimately defeated as players broke through the palace defences on the Thunder Isle. And that is basically the last we've really seen of the Zandalari trolls in the game. Every troll faction is in serious trouble, and their largest known holding, Zandalar, is sinking into the sea. Could this be something that will make it into the game? Well, I think it definitely could be. Like much of this video, this is an island in the sea, therefore it could fit into the N'Zoth and Ashara expansion. Rastakhan is an important character that we've really not seen in-game. He's the leader of one of the oldest empires on the planet, so I think he absolutely is worthy of a place in the game. We know enough about Zalandar to have a fair idea of what it might be like in-game. The skyline is dominated by Mount Magumba up to the north. You'd think that it was a volcano, but Blizzard do like to play it sort of fast and loose with tectonics. While this is an island, remember that it was once a part of the mainland, continent, so who the hell knows what's going on. Visually, though, a volcano would be pretty damn cool. It's also tall enough to be freezing on top, which nicely contrasts the warm jungles of the rest of the island, and the main city of the Zandalari, Zuldazar, is located to the south of the island. Judging by its art, I think it could definitely make for an extremely cool raid, or just maybe an endgame zone. Next we've got Talabeam, so this is known for one thing: bananas. We basically know nothing about it past its famous bananas. The only source that we have is the diary of a sailor who was shipwrecked there. He tells a tale of the bananas' culture, of their social structure, his profound and new respect for the way of life of the bananas, and his horror at how he used to eat their young. Sadly, he ran out of paper and bottles before he could get enough information out. Seriously though, this is really kind of strange. These soaked diary notes are like the only thing we have for this island. They suggest that it's uninhabited, but that does beg a question then. Where do the bananas come from? How do they get off the island? Surely this sailor would have been rescued by people if people were coming to the island to harvest the bananas. So yeah, this is probably one of the greater mysteries in World of Warcraft, and it begs the question, are the Void Lords the real threat? Or, are bananas, are they just slowly infiltrating the Alliance and the Horde? Maybe they're agents of N'Zoth, because apparently everything in this video has to be tied back to that N'Zoth Naga expansion. But yeah, it is strange. We've got this island called Talabeam, we've got items in the game that are from it, yet apparently it's not a place that's inhabited. Alright, Plunder Isle could be really, really cool to see in-game. It's the home of the Bloodsail Buccaneers, who of course we know plenty about. They've been a part of the game since the very beginning, yet we've never visited the place that they call home. Plunder Isle is located southeast of Zandalar and is one of the closest of the sort of South Seas islands to Stranglethorn Bay. Now, the island itself isn't exactly the pirate kingdom that you might think of. Its coasts are rocky and difficult to navigate. The interior of the island is full of dangerous wildlife and murlocs. The Bloodsail Buccaneers, though, have a fortress on the island which is called Bloodsail Hold. That keeps them safe from the island's other dangers and all that stuff. And what's handy is that, well, they've got their hold, the rest of the island is super dangerous, so it's a pretty safe place to be for them. That said, the specifics of this island are based on the RPG sourcebook, which is not canon, therefore it's something that very much can be changed. Now, the leader of the Bloodsail Buccaneers, Fleet Admiral Tethys, is actually friendly to rogues, and is one of the higher-ups in their order hall. All of this means that this is definitely a location that could be used in an expansion set in the South Seas. That said, it doesn't seem to have a lot of lore significance. Yes, the pirates are cool, but I couldn't really see it being that important in other areas. Perhaps it would be best used as somewhere that we could visit for a scenario, or maybe a revamp to the Pirate Day holiday. There is an island in a similar location to this on the map, which is called Hiji, well, at least in old versions of the map. So it seems like both this and Hiji are the same place. Maybe Hiji was just the old name for it before the pirates arrived. Nashitr is the home of Queen Azshara's Naga. Early maps place it being very close to the Maelstrom, so if all of the shamans are just suddenly never heard from again, well, maybe you'll know why. Queen Azshara and the story of the Naga is best explained in its own video, but the short of it is that she used to lead the Night Elves way back in the day. Their reckless use of magic drew the Legion to Azeroth, but they were eventually beaten back by Illidan and the crew, as was seen in the War of the Ancient Dungeon. So Azshara and the other Highborn, which is basically just the sort of socialites, the highfalutin Night Elves, were thrown into the sea, and they were turned into Naga by N'Zoth, one of the old gods who was imprisoned deep beneath the sea by the Titans. It's very likely that an expansion featuring N'Zoth will happen, and if that is to happen, it will probably involve us dealing with Azshara, which again will likely involve us going to Nashitr. I think anyone who has been to Vashj'ir has a fair idea what this place will look like. While the lore significance of it is extremely clear, one does have to wonder, how will it make it into the game? Having an underwater zone ended up being really a love or hate thing during Cataclysm for players, so I could understand the team being really quite worried about making a major element of an expansion be an underwater thing. Still, I think it's almost certainly a place that we're going to see in one form or another during World of Warcraft's lifetime. Okay, Gilligans Isle and the Isle of Dr. Lepadis are bizarre. These used to be in the game way back in the World of Warcraft alpha, and they were even in the World of Warcraft cinematic trailer. Looking at the vanilla WoW alpha build, you can see that these places actually did get some work. Neither ended up making it into the live game, and unlike almost everything in this list, they really don't have much lore significance. Like, one is a pun of Gilligans Island and the other one is a reference to a Blizzard employee. I think that these were probably part of the initial plan for Stranglethorn Vale, as evidenced by their inclusion in the cinematic, but that they were then cut, for really any number of reasons. Once again, I think that we could see them as a one-off scenario if Blizzard wanted to do a throwback at some point, but I don't think this would really be a bit of main content. Alright, the Northern Isles are a really strange one. They've been included on many world maps and look really quite similar to a few places that we've seen. Their layouts look similar to the Dragon Isles, located northwest of Quel'Thalas, and they also look similar to the Broken Isles, which of course are where we are adventuring in Legion. They were removed in Wrath from the game map, which is kind of sensible because they used to be in the same place roughly as the Howling Fjord. This kind of is contradicted by the Warcraft 3 world map though, which places these just above Lordaeron in the same location as where the Dragon Isles would have been on some of the original maps. This is one of those situations where there's loads of different maps, loads of different plans, and they all suggest slightly different things, and they often contradict each other. My read of the situation is that these are not the Broken Isles, and instead were the Dragon Isles, one of the planned raids and areas in the initial plan for World of Warcraft back in vanilla. Now that's actually something I covered in the previous video in this series, so I think it's worth looking at, but overall, I think the Northern Isles probably were the Dragon Isles. I have also seen some speculation that the Strand of the Ancients battleground is also the Northern Isles, and while we don't really have much to support that, it certainly would make sense to me. Well, this is a bit more abstract than the other ones. The entire behind of Azeroth. We haven't seen half the planet. Now, I've already done quite a bit of speculation about this in a video, but basically, it's one of those things where, ships, they go too far off the map and they go missing and never come back. It's pretty likely, therefore, that something bizarre is going on. Now, we have access to spaceships and various different flying machines, so perhaps at some point, somebody could take a peek. What could be behind there? Anything. Blizzard could go mad. They could make Neolotha behind there. They could make Neolotha, which is the sort of old god city. They could even make that another planet if they wanted to. They could make the N'Zoth stuff happen in the backside of Azeroth. Really, they just have a blank slate to do whatever they want. Finally, I'm just going to round up a few islands that do exist in the lore, but we probably won't see. So, Bellular was in really early World of Warcraft concepts, but has not been seen since. Story-wise, it's populated with humans, but was taken by orcs in the First War, and then held by the Stormreaver clan during the Second War. We have not heard from it since, so I think it's safe to say that it may as well not exist. Now, technically, Kul Tiras is one of a few islands, with Zuldair and Crestfall being quite close to it, based on, again, old maps. We know very little about Zuldair, bar that trolls probably lived there at some point, and that the orcs captured it during the Second War. Crestfall was then heavily involved in the Second War, and it's actually where the Alliance managed to destroy the Horde's navy. Pretty sure it was one of the missions in Warcraft 2. The Darkspear Isles are also worth a mention. Located near the Maelstrom, these were actually the home of the Darkspear trolls. Now, they were destroyed by the Sea Witch during Warcraft 3, and it's kind of debatable whether they may or may not exist at this stage, but they are a place that exists in the lore. However, it seems like most of their lore is sort of dealt with. That's basically it for this video though, a quick look at various islands and locations on Azeroth that we know exist, sort of, canonically, but we haven't been to. One of the real reasons of doing this video is that all of this is potential stuff that Blizzard have established that they could tap into for a future expansion, or maybe even something akin to one of the artifact quests where one of these islands could just be a cool place that we do a bit of narrative content. Of course, it's also likely that Blizzard will forge new ground with whatever expansion they decide to do next, and I do have a video covering 5 potential expansion ideas that I think are quite likely for World of Warcraft. We could be going to space, we could be dealing with the Void Lords, we could be at the backside of Azeroth, or we could, of course, be dealing with N'Zoth and the Naga in the more traditional South Seas expansion set that people have speculated for quite a while. Anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.